So first of all, to be perfectly honest with you, array lists and hash maps are going to cover 90% or maybe even 99% of all your needs around what you need to do with more specific data collections and more data structures that you have in Java. Realistically speaking, 99% of collections that you will use in your life is going to be array lists or hash maps. And that is the truth coming out from my experience and from the experience of my developers that are working with me right now. So you need to really, really learn at least those two by heart, and then you are essentially good to go. But why is a hash map so important and why is it so good? First of all, it must use objects. We already know this. It has a dynamic size. We already know this, right? So no difference between a hash map and an array list. But the last one is super important. Data pairing is up to you. And what exactly does it mean that data pairing is up to you? Well, in array list, you've had something like 0th element, element 1, first element, another element, etc., etc. So the data was paired like this. Whatever type is within an array list and a number that is representing its address within array list. But a hash map is something entirely different. A hash map is whatever I say an object is going to be the key and whatever is going to be the value. So you can think of a hash map as your very own database that you are using, the simplest type that you can have, where you are the one that specifies what is the type of a key. In array list, it was a number, and what is the type of the value that is going to be stored under this key. I know that this sounds a bit complicated, but let me simplify this for you in just a second. So let me just go back into IntelliJ and let's dive into a hash map and how to use it. So let's create the simplest hash map possible. And this hash map is going to be hash map, and in here in the diamonds I need to specify two things this time, not one but two: the key and the value. So this is going to be a string and an integer, and of course I need to once again use Alt Enter, import the class. And by the way, as you can see, I have some unused import over here that I grayed out, and I want to clean this up. And I could just go ahead and delete this manually, but IntelliJ is so nice for me that I can just press Ctrl-Alt-O, and it removes the imports for me so that I can save some time. So let's create this map, and it's going to be equal to a new hash map. So I have created a new map. How do I even use it? So here what I'm saying, that I have a string that's going to be acting as a key, and I have an integer that will be my type of value. So in order to be able to use it, what I need to do is first add up some keys and value pairs, because we always want to add up them in pairs. So in order to be able to do that, I use map, and this time it's not going to be add, but this is going to be put. Or in this case, it's going to be, let's say, John is going to be equal to 1. And let's say that I want to also add Dwight, that's going to be equal to 2. It can be whatever comparison that we are making. For example, I can rename this hash map to something else, and let's say the amount of trophies won, right? And another tip for IntelliJ users, if you use Shift F6 on any given field, you can then modify the field itself, and it will then change the naming of all the fields within your scope. In this case, in this particular class. So if I say this is name to trophy count, you can see that not only this part is changing, but also those are changing. So that is very, very convenient. So name to trophy count. So let's say John has won 1 trophy, Dwight has won 2, and I don't know, Claire has won 5 in total, right? But not system.println, but rather name to trophy count. That put, massive memory kicking in. So that is how to put elements into a given hash map. And why did I say that a hash set is going to be super useful for our hash maps? Well, that is because, let's say in this particular case, I have 3 objects, right? But what I want to do is name to trophy count, put Dwight. I have another Dwight that has 3 rewards, right? And this is where hash sets come in, because hash sets do not allow for duplicate values. And in a map, all the elements are stored within, or all the keys are stored in a hash set. This way, we can ensure that there is only unique elements within our keys. Otherwise, we would be getting conflicts, we would be getting multiple values, etc., etc. Why it was easy with array lists? With array lists, the indexes were in numbers, and you can't have 2 zeros, 2 ones, 2 twos, etc., etc. So it's way easier, right? But with objects, and what we have here with the keys, because they need to be objects, those can be bottles, those can be students, those can be to-do lists, right? But with particular, in this particular case, with objects, we need to be sure that they are unique, and we can preserve this uniqueness by using a hash set as the underlying class that is holding all the values together. So that's why it's super important that the hash set is used and you know what exactly it does. So that's how to put in things into our map. And also, by the way, let me just do this and show you something as well. So in order to be able to get elements from a hash map, we can this time use the get method. But in here, I need to specify which value I want by using the key. So the key is acting like a guardian, or rather an index that I can then point out to get the value out of. And if I go ahead and print what I'm getting as a result of this get operation, what I will get is 1. So the value of the key. So that is very important. Whenever we are using a get within our hash map, it means that we are using a key to get the value that is associated with this key. Once again, we use a get with a key value to get the value of itself that is paired to this specific key. So that's how you do it. Of course, this is a dynamic collection, meaning that we can then go ahead and use name to trophy count that size to get the size of this particular collection, which is also something that is very, very much used, trust me. We've got all the run-of-the-mill methods that we've already discussed. For example, is empty that we've discussed around array list, or we also have remove that we've had before, right? But in here, we need to remove a specific key. So once again, as you can even see, IntelliJ is giving me some tips that I need to use a key value in order to be removing something. So that is how you remove things for a hash map. And this is going to be resulting in removal of both the key value and the 1. So everything in hash map is going to be in pairs, right? So keys are always paired to a value, meaning that you can only add a pair of a key value and delete a pair of key and value from a hash map. You can't do it separately. So that is the removal, that is the size, that is getting, that is putting. But then again, what I have done here is that I have put 2 times Dwight. And what does it result in, realistically speaking? If I go ahead and try to do name to trophy count that get of Dwight, what do you think will happen? Will it be 2 or will it be 3? And that is a rhetorical question, because of course, if I run it, you will see that it's 3. So here we've got the size, that's of the size 3, and we've got the get John. So the third print is going to be the value of name to trophy count that get, and we get 3 in here, meaning that the value of 2 was overwritten. It means that there can never be 2 of the same key, and it is always going to be then overwriting the value that has been put in there originally. So that is why you really need to take care whenever we are talking about going through a hash map and trying to add in more elements. Yeah, I hear a question. Yeah, Olsen Berlusconi. Is there a question that you wanted to ask, or did you just raise your hand by a misclick? I'm going to go ahead and guess that it was a misclick. Okay, so we've got Dwight, we've got that, we've got this, and in order to be properly doing operation of our on our HashMap, we also need to learn about two methods. Contains key, which is super important, because this is very similar what we've had with a hash set, right? If we take a look at our unique user directory, I'm also using here students contain student, right? And in here, this is essentially the same. I can use this to check whether a particular hash map contains a specific key, and it returns me either a true or false value, depending on the outcome of the operation, whether this key is already within my map or not. Two last things that I want to notice about HashMap are the three. To properly replace things in a HashMap, it's best to use replace method, where you are saying for a key, John, I want to replace the value with 4. This is a little bit more efficient underneath of what is happening in Java. You don't really need to worry about performance at this stage, but I would say that it's a good habit to have instead of using put every time, because it can get costly at one point in time as you move forward. So it's a just good habit to have. So instead of using multiple puts with a same key, just use replace to only affect the value. And then in order to be able to get all the keys and all the values out of our hash map, how to do that? Well, very, very simple. Our map has a method that is keyset, which is returning a full set of keys that are within our map. So in this case, this would return a set that contains John, Dwight, and Claire. So in order to showcase you that, what we can do is that we can traverse, so go through all the elements of a hash set by going like this. For string, because I know that the keys are of a string type, key within named trophy count key set, print out the key. I'm just going to go ahead, delete this line, and comment out some of those prints so that they don't clutter our code. And if we run it, you can see that I get Claire, Dwight, and John got deleted over here. And replace did not work because it did not put it once again. So that is how to traverse all the keys of our hash map. But how to print out all the values of our hash map, you might ask. And that is also something very simple. Using the iteration that I have going on over here, what I'm going to do is, what I'm going to say is named trophy count that get key. Because what I'm doing here is I'm going through all the keys, and here I can just say, please do get me the value of the map that is under the specific key. So I will say everybody wins, and I can just press play. And here I've got the key 3, 5, and 3 printed out for both Claire and, in this case, Dwight. So everything is behaving as I would like for it to happen. So in order to make it even more transparent, number of trophies for plus key is, let's do it this way so that it will be way more readable. Number of trophies for Claire is 5. Numbers of trophies for Dwight is 3. So what we are doing here, once again, is we're going through all the keys with our key set and then printing out the value of the key and using the key to get the value out of our map itself. So very, very useful. And those are the basic operations that we can use for a hash map. Are there any questions around the hash map, or can I just go through an exercise to show you how to use it in a more structured manner? Okay, if I don't see any questions, of course, there will be plenty of exercises after the meeting that you can then use to practice the skills that I'm talking about here so that you can understand everything that is happening. Of course, the exercises will be focused more on the lists and on, or array lists, sorry, and on hash maps, since you will be using a lot of them in your both learning and in work environment in the, I'm hoping, near future. So let's go to a typical case of use for a word counter. Given a string, count the number of times every word appears in such a string. So it means that when we get a text, we want to get all the instances of a specific name in it, or rather of occurrences of the word. It means that if I have, let's say, 5 words in my string and 2 of them are repeating, I want to know which word is repeating and how many times. If it's just one, then just put in one. So how to properly do this using a hash map? Let's create a public method that's going to be returning a hash map where the key is going to be string, so the word that is repeating, and integer amount of times the word is being repeated. Let's import it, and let's say count words, and string as a value. So now let's think a little bit what happens, right? So I'm just going to go through my string and count every single word. If I already have the word, what I want to do is increment the counter of the word by 1. If not, I want to put it into my hash map with a single value, with 1. So let's see how to do this. So first of all, we of course need a hash map, right? That's going to be of string as a key and integer as a value. Words to occurrences equals new hash map. Okay, and now let's think a little bit about how to count words within a string, right? There's one very, very useful method of a string that we can use over here. One big assumption that I will be making here is that all the words are separated by a spacebar. And with this assumption, I can create an array of strings that is going to be equal to value dot split space. So what this means is that please use space as a, let's say, splitting character that is going to be defining a new word every single time. So now let's go through our strings array, through all of the elements, and count them within our hash map. If the word is already in my hash map, I want to then increment the counter by 1. If not, then I want to put it into my hash map for the first time with a value of 1. And how to do this? Let's use a for. Let's use enhance for even for string word within strings. If my word to occurrences contains key word, what I want to do is words to occurrences that replace word, and here what I also need to do is get the value that I have put in here before so that it's easier for me to then increment it by 1 and put it into my map and replace the existing value. So in order to be able to do that, we want to say int value is equal to word to occurrences that get word. And why is it in red? Variable value is already defined in scope. That's true. So it's going to be number of occurrences. And here what I want to say on the number of occurrences plus 1 to be replaced in this word. But if it does not contain the word, I want to use word to occurrences that put word with a value of 1. And after I've gone through all the words, what I want to do is return words to occurrences. So let's check if